documentary, and I'm chatting with Stacks.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Ken Eurell.
And then we looked for another drug dealer, and we found another dealer who happened to be bigger, making multi-million dollars. Selling 50 kilos of cocaine in a week. And we made initially the same deal. We met him, and the first meeting we had, we told him $24,000 to talk. So he came to the meeting with $24,000 in cash. We told him basically what we're going to do for him, which is, tell him about drug raids. You let us know about any competition you might have. We'll go raid your drug competition and knock them out. That way he gets a stronghold on the neighborhood. He gave us a 24, no problem. And then after that, he gave us $8,000 a week cash every week.
You guys started robbing drug dealers, right? And what was that like? Can you walk me through one of the robberies?
There were quite a few. Most were in the neighborhood because we know more about the neighborhood and we're getting information from the guy we're working with. There were some that were out of the neighborhood. So I'll give you one that's in the neighborhood. Is our boss, I guess you could call him, the drug dealer we're working for, this guy, Adam Diaz. He has competition, and we send in, it's an ex-cop that used to work with in the 7-5 precinct who quit the job when the 7-7 scandal went down. So basically he has no job now. He's not a cop no more, but he's hurting for money. So we know, and he was dirty. So we know we could draw him back in to do side work for us or a little grunt work, do all leg work. So we draw him back in, and he goes and sits down with Diaz. He finds out all the, little intricacies and details of this other drug location that we're going to hit. We set up a plan with him, another ex-cop who quit the job. Well, he didn't quit the job. He got off on disability. So it's 2 ex-cops, myself, my partner and myself. Then there was an active cop that we knew from another precinct and a childhood friend of my partner who spoke Spanish, which is why we brought him along. Pull up to the location. My partner and I go around the back of the location. We're sitting there just in case there's anyone dumping shit out the back window, climbing down fire escapes. And the 4 of them go into the location. The 2 ex-cops who were dirty start going up the stairs. They grab the counterman and start going up the stairs. The stash house is up on the 3rd floor. The active cop from another precinct who never did anything before, this is the first time he's doing anything. He's very fucking nervous. And the childhood friend is also never did nothing, but we know we could trust them because they're close friends of my ex-partner. So they're watching the door. The door is basically, it's a bodega. It's I don't know what a bodega is. Yeah, a grocery store, basically, a Spanish grocery store. So they're watching the door to make sure no customers are coming in or no customers that were in the store are leaving until we're all done. And the other 2 ex-cops are going up to pull off the robbery. So as they're grabbing the counterman and going up the stairs, the 2 guys who never did this before start freaking out, yelling and screaming because there's a crowd gathering outside. That, like, what the fuck is going on? They're holding the door. They want to come in, and they're afraid they're going to call 911. So they start yelling for the cops that are going up the stairs with the counterman. We got to go. We got to go. Let's go. And they think there's something going on. There's trouble, or, maybe there's uniform officers coming. Who knows what's going on? But they're basing their information off what these guys are telling them. We got to go. They void the whole robbery, abandon the robbery, and my partner and I are in the back, and we see them jumping into the unmarked patrol, undercover patrol car. It's just basically one of the guys' cars that happens to look like an undercover car. And we see them jumping in and pulling off fast. So we assume they did the job. Great, let's go. We go to the spot to divvy it up. We find out they fucking panic. My ex-partner is fuming. He's like, what the fuck do you mean you abandoned the job? You can't do that. And now we got to go explain to Diaz why the job wasn't pulled off. Because all the cash in the location is ours to keep. The drugs in the location we give back to him to sell. And none of that happened. So it was pretty much a botched robbery.
So when you tell Diaz, what was his reaction?
Wasn't too happy about it, because now the
cat's out the bag.
The rival is still in business, and he's more aware of what's going on. So is the 8,000 a week that we were grabbing every week, because at the end of this, when everybody is arrested, these guys were, at that time, they were already in jail. By the time we got arrested 6 years later. And when our story hit the paper, these guys came forward and told the Southern District Federal Court of everything that we did. So when I got called in the first time to federal court, nobody's supposed to know what was going on, because we just got arrested for drug dealing out on Long Island, nothing to do with the police department. Yeah. So when I got called into the federal office, they hit me with all this shit that we did as cops. So I know my partner at the time's not talking, because I told him I'm going in to talk to the federal government, and he's like, well, let me know what happens when you get back. And I knew these other two guys were already, it was the main guy, Diaz, and his lieutenant were already in jail. They were in jail since 89, I think it was. And we got
caught selling drugs or something?
Exactly. The DEA popped them. So we got arrested in 92, 3-4 years after they were arrested. So our story hit the paper, New York cops dealing drugs on Long Island get arrested. They're reading that in the paper. They know they can make a deal to lessen their sentence. So when I went into the federal government, I sat down with my lawyer, and I'm expecting them to want to know what I was doing on Long Island, because I was a New York cop at the time. So they start hitting me with shit I did back in 1987 with my ex-partner, and I know only like 4 or 5 people know about what we did. It was the ex-cops that we did shit with, and they're not arrested yet, so I know it's not them talking. My partner and I got arrested together, so I know it's not him. The only two that could be talking are the 2 guys that were previously arrested. And they start hitting me with, who's Adam Diaz? How do you know Adam Diaz? Who's this other guy, the intermediate guy who owned the stereo shop, who in the documentary, his face is blacked out. Mm-hmm. They hit me with his name. How do you know him? So I know somebody among those people are talking. And my lawyer and I say, you know what? We need to regroup and find out what's going on, because I'm not ready to talk about that. And I go back and I tell my partner what's going on. Well, I'll let you know the story. So I'll let you ask the questions of what happens after that.
How did you even get caught as a drug dealer on Long Island, being involved with the police department? How did that all transpire?
So probably about 3 years, I'd say, because I hooked up with him in 87. Probably by 1990, my partner and I are no longer partners. He goes off to a precinct. I'm retired out on Long Island. And these other cops who are active in another precinct know about the stuff I did. They come to me and want to know, can I pick them up a piece, cocaine, so they could start selling? Because one of these guys used to be a drug dealer before he became a cop. So he's looking to make some extra money. That's how good the investigations are when they investigate your background. It's easy for me. My ex-partner is still, I know he became a drug dealer. He works in Brooklyn. He's picking up drugs in Brooklyn and coming home to Long Island to sell the drugs. So I get in touch with him. I say, can you pick me up a piece, pick it up in Brooklyn, and on the way home, drop it off at my house, and I'll have the cash ready for you. And then these other guys come over and I give them the drugs, and I'm in a partnership now with these guys. I don't have to do nothing. I'm getting the money from these guys.
Middleman, yeah.
Exactly. My partner's picking the shit up, and I'm getting a piece of the action. As time goes on, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm giving them pure cocaine from Brooklyn. Why the fuck am I doing that? So I start whacking the coke with inositol. So if I get an ounce of coke, I'll chop it up with 14 grams of inositol and mix it together. So now I have, 2 ounces I get. I hit the 14 pure grams, another 14 pure grams, 14 inositol, give them the mixed gram. And now I have an ounce of, cocaine myself.
Are you doing drugs at this point?
I never did drugs. I tried it once. Just to get into that briefly, it was a friend who was a Marine. He was going away party, going to boot camp, Paris Island. and I gave him an 8-ball as a going away present. He said, do a line with me. I did a line, really didn't affect me. And that was it. One time I tried it, it didn't affect me, didn't like it really. And that was it.
Was Dow doing drugs like on the job and after?
He started hitting, doing coke, doing lines back in '87 when we first got involved with Diaz. That was another contention between us. While we were on the job in a patrol car, he would stop by the drug location and tell the lieutenant, call him over to the car, say, yo, give me a Z. And the guy would come out with an ounce of coke to the fucking car. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? We can't be having drugs. It was bad enough we had, $25,000 cash in the car. We can't be having drugs in the car either. It was a little contention, and that's when he started selling. I started complaining to him, you're picking this shit up with me in a patrol car, but I'm not getting a share of the profit. So that was a little contention, and he started picking it up after work when we weren't together. That's when he started doing it.
Puts you in a position where you could get in trouble for what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get in trouble anyway. It's just at that point, it's the level of trouble, I guess. But you don't see it like that. You try to isolate yourself as much as you can. But eventually, somewhere in the back of your mind, this shit's going to fall apart. It can't go on forever.
Yeah.
And by the time I got arrested, I already had everything out of my house. And my house was up for sale. I was trying to get out of the game, and then the raids happened.
So you're selling. Those officers come by. You're supplying them.
Yeah. So now I'm the drugs that they're paying for. I'm whacking and getting a free ounce of cocaine, basically. And on Long Island, back in the 80s, everybody fucking did cocaine. Every friend I knew, the fucking mailman coming by, everybody was doing cocaine. So now I become, a little part-time cocaine dealer. You deal to your friends, they're all weekend parties. Nobody's a heavy drug user. And that's how I got into selling cocaine. And it went on for a good 2 years. But as it goes on, you get a reputation, and you're selling good fucking cocaine as opposed to all the shit that's out there is stepped on 50 fucking times. You're selling stuff that's stepped on once. Not only am I selling at the beginning to users, now I get involved with guys that were cocaine dealers. They're coming to me as a dealer and buying ounces. Now I'm getting bigger pieces. Now I'm getting a big 8. I'm getting 128 grams, breaking it down to, ounces and selling 28 grams to dealers who then break it down into grams and sell it to the users. So now I'm moving up a level. And by the time 92 comes, my partner and Dad and I are pooling our money, and we're buying kilos of cocaine and then chopping that up. He's taking 500 grams. I'm taking 500 grams. And then we're going off and breaking that down to our own dealers. What happens is one of my low-level dealers got popped, and he gives everybody up. He gives up his phone, and it's a big fucking spider web. Once they hit your phone, it just spread out to everybody. And they had phone taps, and then they do a coordinated raid.
Did they do buys? They
didn't do no buys on me because I'm selling to dealers. They're doing buys from the low-level dealer. So they don't do a buy against me on him. They got us talking on phones. They got everything. You try to talk in code. How many boards of sheetrock do you need? How many dresses are you buying this weekend? But they could decipher all that shit. So they raided my ex-partner's house. They raided my house. They raided the other cops that were involved. They raided their houses, and they raided the drug dealers that were that my partner is breaking his shit down to, and that I'm breaking my shit down to. So the night of the raid, I went out to pick up money that this fucking kid owed me, and I'm in his drug house, and he knows there's a fucking raid happening. So while we're in the house, there's a fucking ounce of coke that he's packing up to, and I get to the house. Usually there's nobody in the house. Usually there's just himself and his roommate. I get to the house, there's fucking 8 users, weekend users sitting in his living room waiting to get drugs. He's like ensnaring everybody. And I get there, and I go in the back door like I normally do. And there's a guy who was basically his driver. This kid, I call him a kid now because I'm 63, but he was probably in his late 20s at the time, was the driver for my drug dealer. But he was a deputy inspector's son, an NYPD deputy inspector's son that was involved in all this. So I walk in and he's there, and he's I know he got information because this inspector was interviewed in the paper later. Why was your son in this location? And he's like, well, I was aware of the raid. Of course, I didn't tell him anything. Bullshit. So when I get there, he's not telling me outright that a raid's coming. And I go through the door and they hit, I'm probably there 5 minutes in the back room with the drug dealer who's packing drugs. And they hit the door of the raid, and this fucking kid is out the back door and gone. So he doesn't get arrested at the scene, but they had a warrant on him because they had him all trapped already on all the phone calls. So they picked him up like 3 days later. But he definitely had an advance notice. Yeah. So, I mean, he still got caught. And that's the deputy inspector, fucking high up, who is, can't say he's corrupt, but in a way he is, because he's tipping off a raid to his son.
When they bust through the door, what are you thinking? What, are you like?
That's the whole thing. When they first rammed the door and they're fucking, I'm in a back bedroom and I look down. At first I thought we were getting fucking robbed. So I take a quick peek out into the hallway and I see it's a fucking police shield and police helmets. I'm like, oh, fuck.